Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and we are a bigger idiot this week than normally because we are returning to a book that was recommended to me in graduate school. And I think it said that I had read this in 2015, and I was so scarred, I didn't remember any of it. I remembered the title. That was pretty much it. But look, there's a reason why we're here. I have a background in some books that are hard for me to believe exist. Not only do they exist, but they were published either, like, this was published by Simon and Schuster. Like, keep that in mind as we get into this. And the more that I read from Simon and Schuster, BT Dubs, the more I'm like, you know, you deserve to go out of business. Let's be real. We had freaking Forbidden. Now we got this. I'm not trying to dictate anything. I'm just saying I understand why Simon & Schuster has tried to sell themselves to other businesses. And you'll see. I want to know. Okay, so we're reviewing this book because I remember being recommended this book by a graduating upperclassman because it was my first semester. She was doing her senior seminar or whatever, her graduate seminar, because in the last term you have to do a seminar about whatever your paper was about. And she recommended this book. And so I picked it up. And now I'm like, this is what was recommended by a graduate in writing school? Are you kidding me? So I've been through the ringer with some of the books that I've read, and it may surprise some people about the books that I have run into randomly, be it from a book fair or from other people's recommendations. And if you're new around the channel or not, I mean, I use these book reviews as a sort of therapy to kind of share the crazy experiences that I've had. And some books I've been like, they've been so unbelievable that I need to share them so that other people can see this disbelieving items that I've been through. And that is why we are here with Hello Kitty Must Die, because I had to share what I went through in 2015 when I was but a wee child. I mean, because I can look back at even my younger self and understand just how out of everything I was. I was so naive at 22. I think that's what it was. I was the youngest person in my class too. Bruh, we can't. But before we get started, we're gonna go through this. I want to share my thought. I want to share this story with you, my thoughts with you. I can't do full justice to how terrible this book is because the first chapter is so grossly, overly descriptive. And then like that type A personality kind of disappears as it goes forward. I'm glad that what happens in chapter 1 never comes back, but also, then why is it included? So we're going to get into Hello Kitty Must Die, what the frick it is. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. I promise I will not try to abuse you with every book review that I do. But like, you know, some channels like to do the big books that everybody knows about. You know, Colleen Hoover, 50 Shades of Grey, Twilight for the upteenth time 20 years later. But to me, I want to bring you the obscure books that I've found by going to book events. There are some things out there, man. You can't surprise me. People come to me now and they're like, well, I just want you to know that there are some things in here that might be offensive. I'm like, bro, I can label it with my opinions, but also not be offended, because it is very difficult to surprise me with the content because I have read some things, trust me. I wanted somebody else to experience Triple X Seamus for a while because that book has stuck with me enough that I'm like, the freaking disaster. I don't know if I will reread Triple X Seamus just to share it on this channel. I might, because I have not dealt with it therapeutically. Anyway, so this is what I do, and if you want more of this or you know, the other kinds of book reviews where I just look for stuff, I just find stuff. I have so many options. I am trying to read. Eventually, I will get on to other books. I'm still in the midst of Amygdala, but we are 50% of the way through that, so eventually I will be allowed to read other books. Anyway, if you like what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number 2, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number 1 way to be featured is through Lemwy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt. You write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we bask in your creativity in those responses. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit your first chapter and your cover, they'll be right here on the channel, assuming you know that they are appropriate, including make sure you edit your books. If I go through there and it looks like it ain't been edited, I'm not coming for you, but that book ain't coming for you, that's for sure. Otherwise, you know, respect the audience. That's mostly what I ask. Third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, links are down in the description below, and you can get them at any of your favorite places to get books, including the local library with request. With that said, let's get into Hello Kitty Must Die by Angela Choi. I know, what a title, what a cover, what a metaphor. She could have done so much better with this metaphor. It felt so, I feel like Angela had specifically like an issue with how she viewed Hello Kitty, and then she was like, serial killers, Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty is a symbol of female oppression, of like keeping your mouth shut because it's both Asian and she doesn't have a mouth or claws, and that, oh, female oppression is Hello Kitty. It's serial killers. Serial killers are edgy. And also a god complex. That's also edgy. Like an anti-god complex. That's also edgy. And then it was just like all of this bundled. Like you could tell this book was published in 2010, I swear. Anyway, so like I said in the intro, this book was recommended by an upperclassman. She did a whole presentation on how great it was because it was about a female serial killer. Barely. She gets 3 kills in this. And basically, I would say she basically doesn't. She's more or less like Sean's side piece partner thing. She like picks some of Sean's victims and then just gets the benefits of some of his murders, but otherwise, like, oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna get into that. No more diddle-dallying. It's best just to get into this so you could see the destructive mess that we are talking about in this book. Remember, this was traditionally published, so if you doubt yourself, when agents say that they pick based on personal taste and values and rather that over anything else, just know that this got past an agent, a bunch of editors, the publisher, booksellers. This was somebody's taste. So anyway, we open up with what I had forgotten that this book started out with, which has something to do with how she was going to take her own virginity with a dildo because she wanted to get rid of her hymen. Yeah, we're starting out hard. I don't feel like that was the correct word to use. She goes into, our main character's name is Fiona, and she goes into too much detail about how she chose the dildo and boiling dildos, and how she thought about in previous situations boiling penises to get rid of the germs. But the boyfriends were not all that into that. Anyway, I wonder if MFAs or intellectuals are really thinking that this has meaning, like a full page about getting rid of a hymen and picking out a dildo and plastic dildos and how it comes from China. We get Fiona's immediate frustration and resentment when she says, quote, "I named my dildo Mr. Happy. I thought that it would be an appropriate name for something that would have the privilege of destroying my family's honor, which I upheld dutifully between my legs for nearly 3 decades. So we are opening this with a lot of resentment for the family. She says American boys won't put up with the waiting until marriage, and this wouldn't be a problem in Hong Kong, though. And being a virgin, period, totally ruins your dating life because apparently you can't leave the house after dark if you are a virgin. That's just, it does not, like, you can't have a life if you're a virgin." And as I get further into this, like, please don't make me ask how much of this is autobiographical dream journal, because if you read the author's biography at the end of the book, it sounds way too much like Fiona. Anyway, I don't think that she's a serial killer. I think that this is a dream journal. So I should also clarify that this is specifically, this whole monologue about losing the virginity is specifically about destroying the hymen. She says that, and how destroying the honor specifically has to do with destroying the hymen. She says that because of that, her dating life sucks, and that's why she's got to do this. She's got to get rid of the hymen because she can't freaking date anybody as long as she has one. As if, she can't just go out and get with a guy and then ask him to do it for her at some point so then she can just get on with her life. She's putting a lot of weight in this situation. Then she's going to go and sleep with this man named Chip because she wants to get this over with. Apparently, when Chip tried to penetrate, though, he just couldn't and bounced right back out. Apparently, the ancestors are protecting Fiona's hymen from premarital penetration, and Chip was left whimpering in the corner. I know that we've talked about possible haunted vaginas here before, but like this is the ancestors protecting the familial honor, I swear. Not that it matters. So this is just, I think, to humiliate a man at the very beginning and also to make it beyond ridiculous, which, fine, whatever. I've got my own situations in other books that are very, very ridiculous. But also, I wish the ancestors were brought into this more. So, not that any of this matters. Fiona goes to a doctor, and the doctor says that her body is fine and the hymen shouldn't have been a problem, period. And Fiona says that Chip wouldn't let her wipe his dick down with an alcohol pad or boil it to clean the germs off before they tried to get busy. Turns out that the doctor is the one that gave her the idea to poke herself with the dildo to get this over with. Then we skip forward to a long description of preparation for self-boinking with lidocaine-coated dildo. I don't even know why a graduate student suggested this book at this point, as I'm rereading it as, not a 20-year-old. Not as a baby, young child 20-year-old. Because let me tell you, looking back at my 20-year-old self right now, I am like, oh my gosh. I feel so stupid for trusting my peers at that time who thought that this was edgy. So Fiona sets the mood for what she's about to do by turning on Smells Like Teen Spirit. Nirvana is going to be a constant thing throughout this book. If you read the book, you will roll your eyes at how often Nirvana comes up. Honestly, this entire chapter just ended up making me sick with the amount of detail that it went into for preparation, for touching the body, and I don't want to go over any of that. She is so focused on this obsessively good type A personality, I guess, if that's what you're looking for in the description, but it's just so much repeating itself. And I think that she's got this issue with herself, her worth, and how she relates to others romantically and her parents. Fiona finds out that she didn't actually have a hymen at the end of the chapter, and then is obsessed with how this could possibly happen, and it means that she never had any honor, so now she's panicking about that. Just girl issues, I guess. After that, she determines that she needs to get her hymen replaced so that she can be the one to take away her family honor. I'm like, Fiona, you don't need a surgeon. You need a therapist. Go. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be more effective. And overall, it should help you be happier in more cases than trying to take your own family's honor. And the fact that you have this issue with your family, it's not a good sign. Fiona proving that she's a vile piece of trash very, very quickly. Quote, so I picked up the phone to make an appointment. I wanted the hymen that the evolution had seen fit to deny me. I didn't have to have one for a wedding night. I didn't have to save myself for a village stoning. I didn't have to save myself from a village stoning. I just wanted some family honor that I could shred into bloody pieces and wear around my neck. It's so spiteful. There is a lot of hate in her heart for her family, just like from the beginning. Just wanting something to dishonor her family with. I feel like there is so much to unpack here. Again, get yourself a therapist, not a surgeon. She has a hard time getting an appointment sooner than 2 weeks, and she's very, very upset by it. Quote, there must be an epidemic destroying hymens in San Francisco, a surge of after-regret premarital sex. Either that or there was another serial rapist running around. I wouldn't know. I never watched the news. It's just depressed me. There was always a rapist, pedophile, or psycho killer doing God's work. Yeah, the mention of God's work every time she means a murder is also going to be something that is consistent throughout this. It's not even funny how much of a vile person Fiona is, though I would probably argue that Maya is worse. Fiona decides to take her $2,500 surgery because apparently she's got the money to drop on this just to dishonor her family, just to send the message, even though she won't necessarily tell her family that she's done that. But, it helps her sleep at night. We learn that she is a lawyer because she didn't want to be a gynecologist or a pediatrician like every other Chinese girl that she knows. Her desktop wallpaper is Ted Bundy, quote, a true psychopath, she says. And when her coworker asks who her boyfriend is, she's like, oh, he's so out of my league. She pretty much adores him to her secretary and then proves that she is a psycho by saying, quote, no wonder we Americans are so in love with our serial killers. The epitome of freedom and power. As a nation of fast cars, fast food, and perfect teeth, we are obsessed with the ones who possess complete freedom from fear, remorse, and conscience. America enjoys the prestige of having the longest list of these creatures and has spawned some of the finest specimens in the world. China has a pathetically short list. Then she lists a bunch of serial killers and also how her screensaver's just a bunch of serial killers. She's just obsessed with them. She idolizes them, but it's clear that she's also more like an edgy teenager with just a boring life who doesn't actually investigate the lives of the serial killers whom she idolizes. Fiona just out here in the narration praising a famous coprophiliac who put pins in his scrotum and climbed into trees naked in front of his kids to scream about he was God. And she says that this man was some kind of genius being punished too hard for doing God's work. Yes, we're talking about Albert Fish. If you go and read any biography about that man, he was not a genius. He had a major compulsion issue and would send a lot of rude letters and was insane. As far as anybody who's reported on him have said. Now it gets to side note, serial killer worship is cringe. And that's not to say, because I have my own interest in them, but the serial killer worshiping is cringe. Now it gets into her saying that white people have all of the fun since they make up most of the serial killers in the United States. She wants to be a suspect. She's like looking at the news and seeing that the general suspect profile is a man between the ages of 20 and 35 or something, a white man. And she's like, why are white people always having the most fun killing people? I don't know, Fiona, you could go and try, I guess. She wants to be a suspect. Now, a hard segue into how she hates Hello Kitty for not having a mouth or fangs to bite people with. Quote, the FBI profiles are almost always the same. White man, age 25 to 40. Female serial killers account for only 8% of all American serial killers. And they are white too. White people get to have all of the fun. For once, I'd like to hear the unsub is most likely female, Asian, age 25 to 40. Unlikely, just like Hello Kitty. I hate Hello Kitty. I hate her for not having a mouth or fangs like a proper kitty. She can't bite. She can't eat, bite off a nipple or a finger, give head, tell anyone to go and fuck his mother or lick herself. She has no eyebrows. She can't even look angry. She can't even scratch her eyes out. Just clawless, fangless, voiceless, with that flaccid, blank expression, topped with a pink ribbon. Like, girl, you had some issues. We find out that this makes her think of her mother, who is totally dependent on her father for money after all of the years of marriage, so she became a lawyer to pay for herself. Somewhat contradicted as she finishes off by saying that she lives at home despite wanting to be completely independent of her parents. She also wants independence enough to defy every other expectation that her parents have for her, including sex before marriage and breaking her hymen deliberately to hurt them, but she won't move out of the house. Like, girl. She also buys everything on the credit cards still, instead of, just paying out of pocket. Is she charging her hymen? So a lot of her friends' families have laundromats just like her parents, but unlike them, she actually enjoys working at the laundromat because she has ruined at least 3 marriages by working part-time at the laundromats. Yeah, she's mean. That's all that she cares about doing is ruining everybody else's life. She hates marriage, she hates men, she hates other people, she hates her family, she hates children, she hates joy. That's it. That's your main character. After learning this, it's time to finally go to her appointment to meet the surgeon of her dreams, Sean Kilroy, Hymen expert. I bet you never thought you would hear that. At Dr. Sean Kilroy's office, she mentions disliking the word panties because it feels dirty. Then Sean Kilroy comes in and recalls meeting Sean in the 6th grade, courtesy of the biggest bully in school. When she met Sean encouraged her to fight back against the bully named Jeremy and ended up beating him with a lunchbox full of rocks. His jaw broke, but since she was going to a Catholic school, when she told the nuns that she was sorry for what she did and sorry that she made Jesus upset and that she loved Jesus, she was let off. But Jeremy was banished from the school, expelled is what they actually say, is expelled from the school because he was not sorry to Jesus. And that's how Sean and Fiona first became friends. However, that friendship was lost when someone in class said that Sean was gay since he wouldn't kiss her, and he lit her hair on fire and got expelled. That's pretty much it. Sean asks Fiona why she's doing this because she doesn't care about dating, doesn't want to get married, doesn't like pain, and so everything is just a waste of time and money to get her hymen redone for no apparent reason. She's like, damn, Sean, you make some really good points. He tells her that just to go and have good sex if that's what she wants to do. And then he asks her if she wants to catch up on Saturday, so that's obviously happening. Fiona explains how she likes Cantonese better than English because she can be more vulgar in it and talk to her parents with it. She explains to us how she's lived at home after the age of 23 because why not? She pays rent, so who cares? Though that sort of defeats the total idea of freedom from her parents, from expectations, since she's under their roof and they're obviously going to push expectations on her, especially if she's not married or dating or anything, which is going to be a crux of this whole book. Now at 28, her dad says that she has failed to land a husband and that he needs to help her find her eternal happiness and bliss by bringing her a husband. Her grandmother worries about her going to America and losing her grandmother initially worried about her going to America and losing all of her morals, so she put the fear of God in her with her saggy tots, you know, her boobas, for nursing 7 kids. Quote, "You want boyfriend? This is boyfriend," she said, shaking her baby-ruined tits at me violently. "You want to be fat? You want to look like this? You go touch boys." We also learned that throughout all of her school years, apparently the only boy who ever liked her in school gave her the class hamster's ears as a gift, and she never got any other gifts, and she put those ears in her desk until they started to smell, and she didn't know what to do with them. Her dad keeps saying how she needs to find a husband, and she lets her bird poop on her and says, "Look, we are engaged." Yes, she holds up the little bird poop ring and goes, "We're engaged. This is the ring. You see how happy we are together." And her dad is like, "You need to stop being a child. You're almost 30. But Fiona is serious. She's like, all things that come with marriage and expectations are just hell, and she doesn't want any of it. And she's just like, she wants to be single. She wants to be left alone. Fiona, just move out. Your parents can't bother you then. She only sees misery in married life and in a husband and says that, and she'll just be used and ignored. So boys should just stay home and fuck their mothers. Don't say that, or else other people at Simon & Schuster are going to take it seriously. I'm like, Maya's sibling sense is activated. I'm just left wondering what she thinks about her parents' marriage, if she believes that marriage is so miserable, and yet she's sitting here and she's okay with her parents, and she's not like, "Mom, you need to get away from Dad." Like, she's not trying to break up her parents, but she also thinks that marriage is horrible and that her mom is in a terrible situation where she is entirely dependent on her dad. I guess beyond what she thinks, I guess it's not really explored in this book. Like, you get the one comment here where she mentions her mom not having any money of her own and then her deciding to ruin marriages. But otherwise, the relationship between Fiona and her parents, or what Fiona thinks of her parents, is never actually discovered. Like, despite this book being 320 pages of specifically interpersonal conflict and murder, there really is no exploration of what any of that means. Does she resent her dad at all? Not really. I mean, maybe for trying to hook her up with a couple of dudes, but not really. She also thinks that some guy named Jason Choi, she also thinks about some guy named Jason K who met a girl in Shanghai and flew her over. When the idea of marriage comes up, all Fiona can think about is the negative things that she's related to marriage. In this case, she thinks about a guy named Jason K who met a girl in Shanghai and flew her over for them to get married. Shortly after that, she was found dead. His lawyer got him off, and later he killed again. The dad comes back in and says that he got his daughter a date, wear lipstick, talk like a lady, you need to impress the mans. Fiona is mad, but obviously just agrees with her dad. And if you think that there's going to be some conflict between her and her dad, like her being like, "Dad, you're trying to make me into something that I'm not meant to be, you are stressing me out," and having some character moment, it doesn't ever happen. This book is so disappointing in every single way. So Saturday comes around and Sean's here to pick Fiona up. Fiona tells Sean about the date with her dad. Fiona tells Sean about the date her dad set up and how she's not looking forward to it. Sean is like, tell your dad that you're dating me. And she says, no, my dad hates white boys. So, like, it's not going to help me if I say that I'm dating you because, hello. She also says that she didn't tell her dad that she was going out with him today. What, is she stupid? Because her dad would have been like, you can't go. It brings up again, why did she not move out if she knows that he is, one, this restrictive? Two, she wants to destroy her dad's honor. She went to get a freaking Hymen replaced so she could take her family's honor away, and she's worried about her dad not liking her dating a white boy? What do you think would disgrace your father more? Just go for it. Like, Sean says, never. You're not stupid. You're highly cerebral and darkly twisted. My dream girl. That is an actual quote, by the way. They laugh about what happened to Stephanie, which is the girl whose face Sean burned because she called him gay in freaking grade school. And Sean actually asks Fiona what happened to Stephanie because he didn't follow up on that since he was expelled. And so Fiona explains that Stephanie was taken out of school and then moved to a different school until she couldn't go to school anymore because she got made fun of so much for her disfigurement caused by being burned by Sean, that she then started being homeschooled until she killed herself at age 16. All over calling a kid gay in the 6th grade. Fiona and Sean just laugh about it, and Sean is like, Stephanie deserved it. Sean also absolutely hated Stephanie because she was the prettiest girl in school, and his mother was also super pretty, but she was a hoe, and so his mom being pretty made him hate literally every other pretty woman in existence because they all made him think of his mom and how his mom was a hoe. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know how Fiona could even take it of being like, you know what, I kind of like Sean, I kind of feel attracted to Sean in some places, and he likes to spend time around me, but he obviously hates attractive people, and that's the reason why he totally is fine being around me, because I'm not attractive in that way. But then the narrative says that she is attractive in other ways, so I don't actually know what Fiona looks like. Fiona asks about Sean's parents, and he says that they're both dead. He has an excuse, but I swear he did them both in. There is no reason he did not do them both in. He then says that he spent time in juvie, and he lost the sense of smell because some other kid who raped his sister shoved a pencil up his nose and destroyed his sense of smell. Fiona's like, what happened to that kid? And Sean won't answer. You probably know what Sean is up to if you're getting any of the vibes of what he did with Stephanie. Then they're just hanging out, talking about what they've been up to. Sean has gotten a degree in Puerto Rico so that he could become a surgeon because he couldn't get into any schools in the United States. He also says that Fiona has no sex drive and assumes it because she doesn't want to date Asian guys. And the assumption that she doesn't want to date Asian guys is because he's like, what, do they all have small dicks? And Fiona's like, damn, you caught me. I would be having all kinds of sex if I wanted it, so... She talks about how her cousins thought that she couldn't use chopsticks since she lived in the United States. Her uncle would also tickle her in bad places, and one day she stabbed him with a fork, so he stopped tickling her. She also says that she was ostracized by her peers for not being a Hello Kitty. In this case, it means like a docile, quiet female, which I assume is a metaphor for not being a Hello Kitty. On their non-official date, Fiona and Sean are shooting clay pigeons. Fiona says that she doesn't like to be touched and is doomed to exist alone forever. It's whatever. I wouldn't say doomed if it's what she wants as a choice. She says that she doesn't date Asian men because of Theo and Keith. Theo is a Korean guy that she dated in high school for about a week, and his dad apparently beat his mom and thought that he was allowed to beat his spouse and that was just a birthright because he was an Asian man. They literally blame it on him being an Asian man. Also, she says the guy's little toe kept falling off, though Fiona never believed it, never saw it. Also, Theo's grandma ate poop and would slip it into the family meals when given the opportunity. This is going to be one of the first introductions to the coprophilia in this storyline, I feel like, but the story actually mentions poop and farts a lot, to the point it was noticeable. Keith is somebody she dated apparently the year before, and he allegedly ate cat poop and had an ego problem. He was an architect and he was bad at it. He was apparently a hippie and thought that he was better than everyone else because of it. And she says that she dated him for 4 months and got really sick because he believed in composting and kept the compost next to the food in the fridge. Also, he was a loser who couldn't hold a job down because his architectural skills sucked. She never slept with this guy, and Sean is like, see, you've got no libido. And that's why she doesn't date Asian men anymore, Keith and Theo. Except for the guys that her dad is setting her up with now, and that she's not looking forward to any of it. She's probably like, how many of them eat poop? Fiona then asks about Daryl again, and that was the guy who raped his sister from the juvenile delinquent center. Turns out that he was set on fire by, quote, smoking in bed. Yeah, no one believes that, Sean. Also, he died, clearly. Fiona thinks about maybe being a nun would have been a good option, because then you're not expected to get married and have kids. You just have to love Jesus and tolerate children, even though she kind of hates children. She says women complain about wearing stilettos because misery loves company, and it's foreplay if you complain about the pain of stilettos to men. But Fiona is different. She wears stilettos because she likes the pain. It reminds her that she is alive. She then thinks about how she is too vain to blemish her skin, but also the whiter the skin, the more valuable you are in Chinese culture, even if you're fat. And she thinks about her cousin, Katie, who bleaches her skin but is also chubby. But she's considered to be better than Fiona because her skin is brighter. Fiona then says that she wears stilettos instead of cutting because that means she's not blemishing her skin, but she's still getting, the high of feeling pain. Quote, I don't cut myself with razor blades. Instead, I wear painful, pointy 4-inch stilettos day in and day out. The perfect combination of beauty and pain. Stilettos accentuate my legs, hips, torso. They give me height to hold my too dark, unbleached face up to the world. My constant foot pain reminds me that I am indeed alive inside my body. And because it's a lot more sanitary than cutting, the pain is really quite exquisite. I love the way my toes jam into the narrow toe box, the excruciating crunch they suffer for a price of fashion and beauty. I love how my arches flex up almost beyond their capabilities. I love how pain shoots up my ankles, calves, knees, and thighs with every pounding step I take on the pavement, grounding me to my physical body. It's time to meet date number 1 of Fiona's, which would be Freddie. He is described as a loser who works at computer stores and plays video games and takes her to a cheap restaurant. We're gonna find that everybody that Fiona hates plays video games or has something to do with a computer job. Oh, Fiona. She's not impressed by where they go for food, and she dresses up to flaunt her face at him because she knows that he will never be good enough to have her. She spends the whole time judging him for how much of a loser she thinks he is, and how he's a failure in so many different ways. He doesn't cook, doesn't clean, wants to marry his mother, hates birds, which obviously Fiona takes personally because she is married to her pet bird. Things go so bad that he excuses himself to smoke and then leaves her with the check. And Sean is somehow right outside to pick her up and then takes her home. The next day, Dad asks about the date, and it did not go well. Dad says that Freddie didn't go home last night. Fiona's like, well, I don't know what happened because he left me at the table and he didn't pay for the food. And then Dad is like, he didn't pay for you? What a cheapskate. I'm gonna go tell off his family. Dad immediately comes back in and says that Freddie's body was found in the alleyway behind the restaurant. He was robbed. Oh well, he was a cheapskate anyway. Fiona feels bad for Freddie's pet turtle that he told her about on their date because, now the pet turtle doesn't have a parent. But then she's like, you know what? Maybe he was kind of a jerk, and so it's better for the turtle that he doesn't exist anymore. Who knows? The guy hated birds, so he deserved to die. That is part of her reasoning. Also, her dad has set her up for another date. He is on it. That man freaking got Tinder on his phone, and he's like finding all of the potential husbands for his daughter. He knows that she's into the cop roast, so he's like, that's a joke. I don't know if he knows what she's into, but he deliberately ends up picking everybody that she is like, I don't like these people. We get more flashbacks of Sean being a problem child and smoking at lunch and school, and then skip forward to meetings with Sean at his apartment, and he's in nothing but a boa. That's right, he answers the apartment door naked, wearing a feather boa, and they're just gonna go bar hopping since he invited Fiona over to just come and hang out. He invites her in and stands there talking to her, waving his dick around, literally doing one of these as they converse, and he's like, see, you're afraid of the D. Look at you. Look at you. And she's like, I'm not afraid of the D. I'm standing right here. I'm not doing anything. And then Sean asks, well, are these moves working for you? And Fiona's like, no. What? And he's like, damn. See, I told you that you have no libido. Because those are the moves that are going to impress this girl. Really, really, Anyway, Sean decides that now it's time to put clothes on since wiggling himself around nude while he's talking was not doing, the heat dance for this girl. And while she waits for Sean to come back dressed, she thinks about this neighbor that she once had who had a giant boa constrictor, and the neighbor took a nap and forgot to close the snake's case, and he woke up dead because the constrictor constricted on him and then tried to eat him, and then it also suffocated and died, unable to eat his owner. There are a lot of like really random stories in here where it feels like the author was just like, what kind of crazy thing can I write about? It's like she was inspired by Adult Swim and that's all that she did, where all of this stuff is nonsensical and just ridiculous. So Sean invites Fiona to go and look at the new toys that he's gotten in his room. He's got pictures of animals pooping framed up on the walls as art. Again, I told you the poop is just going to keep showing up in this story. And I'm like, Angela, are you okay? I told you, the poop stuff is just gonna keep showing up in this book, and every time I'm like, Angela, are you okay? Also, the new toy that Sean was talking about is just a giant baby punching bag that screams when you hit it, and he's got a bat nearby, and he just talks about how mauling it is his normal. That's not a red flag. Now they're at the bar getting drinks, and Fiona's judging everything and how you couldn't get here without wearing name brand clothing. Sean also tells Fiona to pick a girl from the club bar over there because, you know what he's picking a girl for, okay? And it is not the schnoo. You know this. Fiona's like, oh, you're gonna freaking ditch me for a different girl? Fine. I didn't even know that you liked blondes. We already know that Sean doesn't like blondes because they remind him of his mother and he's obviously got mommy issues, which also just makes the serial killer thing like more stupid. Fiona picks a girl for Sean and he says, all right, I'm gonna head out. Good luck. You should go home, Fee. Fiona explains how she picked the girl because she was too pretty, like way too pretty, and she wanted that girl's shoes. Those shoes are gonna... Those shoes don't come back, but Sean does give her the flower that girl is wearing. Anyway, Sean says Fiona is not like other girls, and that's why she's not calling him a jerk and for bailing on her. Yeah, that's right. He's like, I know that I can use you. I know that I can use you for this sort of situation, and you're not going to say anything because you're not like other girls. Are you, Fee? Fiona is just like, ugh. I want to go, Sean. Can we not play this game? Can you not ditch me for this random girl? I don't care about this. I don't want you to do this. I just want to go home. And Sean is like, bruh, I have God's work to do, so you're going to have to get yourself home. I'm not going to dance with you. I'm not going to go home with you. I'm not going to do anything with you. Fiona watches Sean approach the woman, admires her beauty, and then goes, you know what? Fine. Whatever. She deserves to die. So at this point, Fiona already knows what Sean is picking that girl for, and it is not for the horizontal tango. The next day, Fiona can't get a hold of Sean, and she's suspicious because the doctor's office said that he had a family emergency, but she's like, he doesn't have any family at all. At work, the woman described as man-crazy Lori approaches, saying that there is an Asian speed dating event coming up and that they should go to it because she needs a wing woman when she is going on a dating event. They have to 2-drink minimum at speed dating, and Fiona's like, yeah, that's because they want us sloshed so that the men can take advantage of us. They're instructed to put 3 things on their name tags in order to create icebreakers, and being the fun one of the group, Fiona puts down not a green card, not a meal ticket, and looking for a big PP, looking for a massive PP as her 3 things. Silent dating goes well, and everybody thinks that Fiona is funny. Though Lori gets no numbers, Fiona gets 2 at the end of it all. She doesn't like any of the people, and she is ungrateful even though she scored and Lori did not. Lori is also using dating websites, and Fiona is not interested in it at all. Just so you know, Lori never comes up ever again. She's not important. It was just this, and neither does that other guy. You get one of the guys in this shows up briefly and gets punished at no fault of his own, and the other one just got away scot-free. So Fiona returns home and her dad says that she's got another date. This time it's with the son of a chef of one of the best Chinatown restaurants. And Fiona's like, fat. He's immediately fat. And Fiona's immediately like, fat. He must be fat. If he is the son of a chef, he's fat. She's so mean. She complained at her previous date that the guy didn't know how to cook. And now that her dad's got her a guy that possibly knows how to cook, she's like, fat, fatty McFat, fat. What does she, I say, what does she want? We know what she wants. She wants to die alone. Fiona makes up that she has a date this weekend with one of the guys from the speed dating, says that he went to UC Berkeley, and her dad is like, what? You're gonna date a Berkeleyite? That's amazing. And Fiona is just fuming because she's like, I can't believe he's so happy that I have a date with a guy that went to Berkeley. I went to freaking Yale, and he doesn't even think that matters, but he's okay with this guy from Berkeley. He's like, oh, great job for yourself, Fifi. She is so mad. Anyway, Dad doesn't totally cancel the date. He just says, I'll move the day that it's on so that you can go out with Thomas, but you need to keep your options open just in case Thomas doesn't work out, because it's a first date with Thomas anyway, so you can't make any promises. Sean hears about the date and gives Fiona some date rape drugs. Oh yeah, he gives her some roofies just in case she needs to make a quick escape. Fiona doesn't even question why Sean has drugs, and she says she knows why. She doesn't question it because she's a lawyer. And so the fewer questions you ask, the better, because you know when you start seeing sketchy things that somebody is up to something sketchy, and you honestly just don't want to know because you don't want to have to lie. So just be like, truly ignorant. I don't want to know. True ignorance. At the same time Sean gives her the roofies, he also gives her a flower from the girl that he killed from the bar the other night. The entire narrative is dancing around how Fiona knows exactly what she did as she goes, I am completely ignorant, though. I don't know what Sean is doing at all. This wouldn't be so weird for her if she didn't praise serial killers with her wallpaper at work. Because now she's suddenly like, oh shoot, I gotta pretend to be ignorant. I don't know if I want to do this. Fiona, you can be truthful in your own thoughts if you think that it is hot, which it couldn't even commit to that. Is like she knew what was going on. It set her up as worshiping these serial killers. And then as she learns that Sean is a serial killer, she like tries to hide the fact, like dance around the fact that she knows that is true, and it never actually comes into her character. Anyway, it is time to go on the date with Thomas, and he is 45 minutes late because he couldn't find a parking spot in downtown San Francisco. Fiona is about to leave when he finally gets there. The movie is half over, so Fia's like, well, why don't we go and eat? And the dude is like, I'm not hungry. I ate before I came. But what if we went and did karaoke? And Fiona's like, I hate karaoke. Karaoke is so freaking lame. But Thomas gets her. Fiona just whines the entire time they're at karaoke, and once she gets tired of him, she drugs his drink and then sneaks out. She gets home and her dad accosts her. She tells her that her date was cheap and wouldn't even take her to eat food, and the dad is mad, tells Fiona not to date somebody like that who won't take care of her, and then says that she's got the date with the Chinatown guy coming up. That guy's name is Don. Randomly, Fiona gets fired at her law firm for underperforming on expectations. She has 2 hours to get the frick out of the office. She tells Sean, and he invites her over for some drinks, and then they're gonna go to some bar called the Wine Table to schmooze and get Fiona another job. Here, Sean tells Fiona to pick a victim, and then once she does, he's like, you think that person is a lawyer? And she's like, yup. And he's like, you're right. And then he goes, okay, I'm gonna go do what I do. And she's like, I didn't know you did, man. And he's like, you don't know a lot of things about me, sweet cheeks. And then he gets up and dude dies. Dude dies, calls Fiona the next morning, says, hey, there's a job that opened up at this at this law firm. Go and apply for it ASAP. She immediately gets the job. Everybody likes her. And apparently the most important thing about getting a job at a law firm is that you make yourself likable and you get on it quick. And that's why she got the job so quickly. To celebrate, she sets a time to meet up with Sean and eat, but first she's eating dim sum with Don, the son of the chef. She judges him so hard from the moment that she meets him. Fiona just thinks about how much she hates Chinese traditions and her family and that weird things about her family, and she keeps zoning out on the meal. While eating, Don eats a couple of nuts that have been grinded up into his food and dies of peanut allergy. Sean! You can't tell me that Sean's not in the kitchen over there pretending to be a chef. Fiona then goes to meet Sean to go boat sailing. His boat smells like dead squirrels, and she recalls a time in college when her dorm smelled like death, and it gave her weak orgasms. I'm not even joking about this. Quote, Sean's sailboat smelled like decomposing squirrels. During my last year at Yale, a couple of squirrels had scurried their way into an inaccessible part of the dormitory boiler room seeking warmth and shelter from a snowstorm. They starved to death right next to a furnace. For their entire spring semester, a heavy, sickly sweet smell permeated the air, causing headaches, vomiting, fevers. Every time I turned my head a certain way, I breathed it in. But, like a too often worn perfume, pretty soon I couldn't smell it anymore. After a couple of weeks, I had to run outside, draw in deep breaths of fresh air, and come back inside to enjoy it again. The sweet smell of death. Thick, toxic, intoxicating. It made me giddy. It gave me weak orgasms. Turns out that Sean also got this boat from a dead guy. I'm sure that you can imagine what happened to the last owner of the boat. Once they're at sea, Sean is obviously dropping body bags over the edge of the water while Fiona faces the other way and pretends she doesn't know what he's doing. Then they meet up with someone that Fiona now works with and his hottie assistant slash 18-year-old girlfriend. Described as just the kind of person Sean hates, he literally just hates hot women. That's it. It doesn't matter their race, he just hates hot women. Anyway, because this woman is Asian, and so Fiona also hates her because she associates this woman as being a Hello Kitty. Because she is just a young, quiet Asian woman and doesn't, like, Fiona doesn't see this woman as a victim of any kind, even though she could, and she's associating people with being Hello Kitties because they have no way to fight back. But then she also just hates this girl because this girl is hot. It's so bizarre. There is no consistency through the psychology of this situation. When the woman approaches and says hi, Fiona's like, well, that woman definitely deserves to die. Why? Because she is pretty. You get what you get for approaching and being a hottie. Fiona is pissed at her boss for ruining her weekend by running into her because nobody wants to see their boss outside of work, and she's also mad that he has an Asian girlfriend, and Fiona accuses him mentally of having a Hello Kitty fetish. Jack is getting suspicious of the smells, and Fiona is like watching the two of them. Jack is her boss. And then they're all drinking together. It seems like Sean is drugging the drinks. As they continue to drink, May starts mentioning like there's a weird smell about the boats, and Sean is like, you know, let me go and get you some more alcohol from underneath the area. Because you know that he's definitely drugging things. After the sailing event, we find out that Don is actually still alive. He didn't die from his nut allergies, and he wants to make it up to Fiona about what happened on the date. Fiona doesn't want to go, for obvious reasons. Then she calls Sean to ask about her boss's girlfriend, May, that 18-year-old Asian girl, because she doesn't want to go to work without figuring out what happened to that girl, and she feels like something bad happened to that girl. Sean is like, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to say anything because that guy is actually married. That was his mistress. He wasn't going to take this chick to the emergency room because she was under 21 and she was full of alcohol and she was drugged and his wife would have found out. So he wants to keep all of it a secret. So what happened to May is probably never going to be found out. Sean is right. When Fiona gets to work, she gets called into Jack's office. They talk. Jack sees that she is not bringing anything up, that they are both lying about what they did over the weekend, and Fiona is free to go. So now Fiona is getting ready to go crab fishing with Don over the weekend, and Don wanted to take Fiona out with his friends to also bond with the friends and see how she does with his friends. Fiona complains about camping and how she thinks it's so freaking terrible, and she's thinking about the Unabomber and how nature hides people's secrets. She also hates dirt. She doesn't want to spend time around Don, obviously, but there's no getting away from it when you're in the middle of nowhere. Watching Don play hearts with his friends, she's so bored, not participating, just judging and sitting there, and is just like, nothing is happening. The next morning, they wake up, and Don's friend Carl is missing. Without even bothering to look for him, they decide to go back to the city, which is even more ridiculous because we find out that his body is found on the beach very close to their campsite, and everybody is like, you know what? He must have died when he walked away to take a piss. So, like, if he was that close to the campsite, it means they didn't even look for him. They just, like, woke up, saw that Carl wasn't there, and then were like, meh, I guess he can find his own way home. Let's not hang out here. At home, the parents bug Fiona about Don, insisting that she must like him because she spent the night with him. And she's like, bro, I didn't even know that we were going to spend the night in the forest. Nobody told me that, and I didn't sleep with him, and I don't like him, and no, we are not getting married. And her parents are like, yeah, you're getting married because you spent the night with him, so clearly you like him. And she's like, I had no choice. Y'all didn't tell me anything. Y'all set me up. I don't want to marry this guy. Her parents aren't listening to the point that they're like, you are getting married because you also have the wedding already set up in a couple of weeks. So, like, this is it. Like, her parents work fast. I don't know why they waited until she was like 28 and however many months this is. But they are like, you know what? 2 dates, done, ring on it. Fiona tells Sean about everything happening. And so she's like, well, now that I'm getting married, I'm definitely going to need that Hymen because he's going to care. He's gonna know. I don't think Don is really gonna know. That's such a weird, it's such a weird thing that randomly keeps going up in here that it's like nobody is talking about except her. She is so, but it's like she was talking about dishonoring her parents, and what's more dishonoring is just getting married to this guy and being like, you know, you don't get the hymen. And she could just lie. She could literally lie and say she took it from herself to him. If that's really what she wants to do. It's so dumb. The whole thing is dumb. The hymen could have been used for the honor thing, and it could have been used as a play throughout for her resistance against the traditions and the pressures that her family pushed on her. But there is no exploration. There is no illusion. There is no metaphor. There's nothing. It just like randomly shows up in the conversation every now and then because I don't know. Some MFAs think talking about sex is deep and thoughtful, and it's no. Anyway, Sean takes Fiona to a bar and they drink, and he reminds her that this is America and she doesn't have to get married to Don if she doesn't want to. And I can't believe that she doesn't, like, you know, just move out, go live on your own. Look at, you're a lawyer. How much money do you have? Just be like, hey, Sean, can I sleep on your bed for a little while I get ready to move out of my house so I don't have to marry this guy that my parents are trying to make me marry? She had to know that this was going to happen. It couldn't have just been like her parents suddenly going, okay, now you're getting married. I feel like with the types of the way that her parents are acting, they were probably constantly on her case about like, are you going on a date? Who are you dating? You see anybody? I know some guys. It sound like they sound a bit overbearing from the way that they are, so it doesn't feel like it would just be sprung on her. So if she really wanted to get away from it, then she would have moved before it escalated to this. While they're at the bar, Sean is asking where he can find Don because, you know, he's looking for an afternoon activity. Everyone dies sometime, you know? That's one of this book's favorite phrases, by the way. Everyone's got to die sometime. God's work, hymen, and poop related items. Those are the book's favorite elements. Fee knows immediately why Sean is asking and tells him that he does not need to do anything about Don. It's not his problem. And Sean is like, you know what? Okay. I will leave Dawn to you to figure out. Why she's suddenly protecting Dawn when she has killed women for less? I think she kills 3 people by the end of this book, and all of them are men. But she has Sean kill women for her, though she hates women. Anyway, Sean's not fighting Fiona on this. Fiona calls Dawn and says that they're not getting married. She's uninterested in him and doesn't care what her parents say. Everyone after that tries to convince Fiona to pick Dawn, and she just keeps saying no. Eventually, she gets talked into going to Dawn's new house to have dinner with him and his family, and to tell him no in person when it comes to marriage. Fiona is, in fact, ready to kill this man. At dinner, she tells everyone that she does not want to marry him or be a good girl or have anything to do with Don, and monologues to herself about how much she hates children and wants to shove poop in their mouths when they cry. And everything that anybody brings up at the table has to do with wife, children, food, laundry, and Fiona is just having a mental breakdown, not wanting anything to do with any of it. So her parents leave her to talk to Don, and as she's there by herself with Don, she's like, I'm not marrying you, BT dubs. Then she goes outside and tells her parents that she broke it off with Dawn, and Dawn didn't kiss her, and no, they are not getting married. Fiona is then with Sean, and he's telling her to give people what they're asking for as they watch movies like American Psycho and Clockwork Orange, because these characters, all of their hobbies have to do with actual murder or death. They have no personality outside of serial killer movies or depravity. And then it's time for Fiona to randomly decide that, you know what, yeah, she is going to kill Dawn. At work, her boss is yelling at her and she feels inferior because these people yell at you for not being better at your job when you went to Yale, as a way of saying that they are better than you. Like, oh, you went to this elite school and this is how much you suck. You are way below me even though you went to this elite school. What is wrong with you? And she's like, excuse me? Really, she just has an ego problem. Anyway, she's upset that he is yelling at her and wants coffee, so she drugs the coffee with his heart medicine that he has, and then he dies. Now she's determined that it's time to take on all of her bullies because she is emboldened by taking on her boss. She goes home and has steak made by her mom, and she's like, you know, this is the good reason to stay home because I can have delicious food made by my mother, a delicious bento made with care by a loving wife. That's Fiona. She's the one that wants the spouse that cooks. Which, you know, then you'd be like, well, marry the guy whose dad is a chef, and maybe he'll cook for you, and you can continue to be a lawyer. Anyway, yeah, so she's like, I like to live at home because my mom always cooks for me, and she makes amazing food, and who needs to get married when your mommy can make you food? It's almost like the reason why she judges all of the men for wanting a wife that can cook. She's like, why is that expectation on me? And then she holds her mother to that expectation. She goes to her room thinking about Dawn and Peanuts and murder and how to put them all together. And she's listening to Nirvana when Sean calls. As she's telling Sean about the guy that she killed at work, he's like, shut up, shut up. Killing people is like Fight Club, and you don't talk about Fight Club. So that's how it goes. And she's like, you know what? You're right. He asks her if she wants to hang out this weekend, and she's like, no, I got plans. I got plans that include peanuts. And he's like, hell yeah. Now that Fiona's boss is dead, she finds out that he's been careless with his meds before, so things should be fine. There's never gonna be any suspicion around how he died. Everyone just assumes that he did it to himself, because this book also continues to have zero consequences for anything. Which is a common thread between terrible books, is characters do things, and there are zero consequences, literally. So it just turns into an author power fantasy, or an author sex fantasy, or sometimes uncomfortably both. Now there's a merger going on at her business, and she finds out that she'll be working in a new department under a woman as her boss, and she's going to be moving departments. And over at Sean's house, he's watching Law and Order, probably to figure out, you know, because all of his favorite hobbies are crime-related, but he has no personality outside of that. She talks to Sean about what she's going to do, and he gives her tips on how to get away with it. Then she's on her way to Dawn's, and she eats 5 Snickers bars in preparation for what she is about to do, because now her mouth is full of nuts, and all she's got to do is kiss him, and she's like, he is going to die because I have kissed him. She gets to Dawn's house, and he's exercising, you know, with his weights set, and he's like, hey, you want to watch me do weights? And she's like, yeah, sure. And then she's standing over him watching him, and he slips, and the barbell like lands on his neck, and then she kind of just lets him suffocate, and she's like, I didn't even have to do anything. Because she's not an active protagonist. She doesn't want or do anything except to whine. She can't even kill her own kills. So she's like, well, why should I have to kill Dawn when I don't actually have to kill Dawn? And then she calls Sean. She goes home and tells her mom what happened, and that Dawn is now dead because he suffocated, and her mom is like, oh my gosh, you poor baby, I'm so sorry that you went through this. She gets to work, sees the article about Dawn dying, and then calls up Sean to be like, psst, go and look up what happened to Dawn. His name is in the paper, and he's like, yeah, bitch, good for you. Fiona is excited to go to Dawn's funeral, and it's pretty gross. Quote, I love funerals. They are chock full of good energy, which is perfect for anyone who has a porous psyche. It's like bathing in pure sunlight. I have a very porous psyche. If you hated the descendant, you're glad, happy even, that he's dead. If you loved the descendant, you're sad, you miss him, and you grieve because you love him. Either way, the resulting emotions come out positive. Good energy all around, no jealousy, envy, or spite like you would encounter at weddings. Just pure love, and perhaps a negligible dose of schadenfreude. No one ever says, I've been a pallbearer 27 times and never a decedent. When do I get to go? When do I get to be the one carried down the aisle? I bet that would be Fiona, though. Let's be real. She'd be like, when do I get to die? Actually, considering some of the fiction I've seen lately, that's like Depression Quest. I think there are plenty of protagonists that are like, when do I get to die? Because I am not going to kill myself. She is then glad that she went so that she can stuff her face with food, because she's like, funeral food is the best and nobody judges you because you can just eat as much as you want and say that you were eating grossly because you are grieving and nobody can judge you for it. And that's why she loves going to funerals. She's also annoyed by her mother's superstitions. She says how there are no prayers for anybody younger, so screw babies and screw people like Dawn who are easy to replace because no one cares. So she says at the funerals, because of the traditions, nobody prays for the young. Then Fiona's dad tells her that she can't date for a year out of respect for Dawn, and she's like, hell yeah. At work, she gets her new office right by her new boss and has to spend the night working. Sean calls to invite her over the next day since she can't come now, and Sean says that with his luck is about to run out and he's not feeling super confident, he needs to go and see her now. It's amazing that his downfall comes right after he announces his downfall. Not that it happens organically, but the narrative tells you that it's happening as he's not been involved in anything, because the book just forces everything to happen. She thinks about a time that something bad happened in school with Sean and how unconfident he was back when Sean's dad died. Then it says that Sean should have come to the funeral with her to get some of the good luck of the dead. Fiona is then talking about how the best lies are half-truths. She gets to Sean's house to see him, but he is not there, so she calls around looking for him. When she catches him, it sounds like he's at the harbor, probably dumping another body. He tells her to meet him, and so she grabs a cab. At the harbor, she gets a bad feeling and thinks about how her mom had superstitions to fight bad feelings and determined that it doesn't help. You just have to stay on your toes in order to fight against the bad things that are always going to come lurking for you. She returns. Suddenly, she's like, you know what? I don't know if I should trust this guy that's kind of a casual murderer that hasn't had any problems with being openly, a killer around me. I don't know if I should be alone on a boat with this man. Fiona, where did your adoration for serial killers go? It disappeared just with your concern with your hymen. As time goes forward, she keeps getting a bad omen, a bad feeling. An earthquake is one of those things that expresses to her that something bad is about to happen, and we're signaling the climax is coming as we're at like 80% now. Some days later, Sean calls her, says that he's back in town after visiting Tahoe and wants to grab a drink with Fiona. Now she's talking about how if you make the wrong move, you get caught, and your luck does eventually run out because, it can't organically do that in the story because it's not actually following any of these actions or causing consequences, and everything is just living outside of logic in a vacuum. So the book has to telegraph to you when something is going to happen, since it's literally just the author throwing down cards and saying, now this happens, now this happens, now this happens. No action, no consequence. It's just you see the author's hands in everything. Again, dream journal. This introduces Sean's luck has run out when someone came across Carolyn's body. Sean says that he needs Fiona to help him pick out his next victim, as she praises serial killers for being the good people of the earth. Quote, some serial killers kill to clean up the scourge of the earth. They get rid of vermin like drug dealers, pimps, child molesters, people whose depravity has already condemned them to an early death. More power to those self-appointed guardians of morality. I'm just sitting here thinking about the serial killers that it's mentioned. You got the Unabomber, you got Ted Bundy, you've got Jeffrey Dahmer is eventually mentioned at some point. You've got Ed Gein is mentioned at some point. You've got, I don't recall. But none of those people were targeting drug dealers, pimps, and child molesters. So what is she talking about? The majority of serial killers that I know of do not target those things. So why is she suddenly being like, well, they target bad people? And then she knows that Sean is not targeting bad people. He's just targeting pretty people. And he also killed a freaking person so that she could get a job at a law firm. So like, now she suddenly, serial killers are the good ones because they just go and kill the scum of society that society already hates. Where? You freaking praise Ted Bundy, have him as your wallpaper. He didn't target that stuff. So like, what are you talking about? At least be like, yeah, these serial killers killed the bitches of society. Like, be consistent. Don't try to worship and praise serial killers as if they are some kind of vigilante that takes care of the bad people that society misses, because they don't. And the people that you have chosen to name from historical context did not do what you are saying serial killers do. Getting back to freaking Sean's downfall, you've got Carolyn Derby's situation apparently made it so that he has to now pick on prostitutes. It's insane that Fiona is making the above statement when the only people targeted so far by her and Sean are pretty people and people that stand in her way of living a better life or job opportunities. The scene where the two of them are meeting is pretty short before she returns home and is told something happened with her cousin Katie. It turns out that Katie didn't want to have children, and Fiona praises her cousin for knowing better. She is like, meh, kids aren't that great anyway, and Katie is smarter for not wanting to have kids. Fiona hates everything. In particular, it seems that she harbors hatred for sons because of the importance that they have in Chinese families of putting sons before daughters. And then Fiona is going on about how Katie is a money whore while her husband is a green card needer, and that's why that relationship even happened in the first place. Apparently, Peter gave Katie everything that she wanted with his money, including trips for one to Europe, since he couldn't afford to send both of them to Europe. Tell me how that makes any sense. And then, quote, so what do you guys do on the weekends? I asked Peter one afternoon when Katie was out. We go shopping at Target, clean up the apartment, go shopping downtown, that kind of thing. Why don't you go on romantic vacations together? No money. Katie went to Europe by herself. What? Katie took a tour of Europe. Why didn't you go with her? We didn't have the money for two people to go, so she went by herself. Okay, so what did you do at home, Peter? Fixed up the house, waited for her. Christ. Then Peter had to deal with Katie's temper tantrums and her mother's endless demands around the house, rides to and from here and there, grocery trips. He became the designated grocery boy, chauffeur, cook, handyman, and now he wanted to be a father. So what? He is taking care of her and her mother, and oh my goodness, he wants to be a father, as if he's demanding anything of her, as she is demanding everything of him, including tickets for one to have a trip to freaking Europe. He is unreasonable for wanting, a child with his wife. The way that it's written is that's how it is. Seems that Kate got everything that she wanted, but still hated Peter for it, despite being happy to use him for his money. Fiona says that Katie was a bully, and Mom, for some reason, just goes with it and agrees with Fiona. She says, don't get married, because yeah, you're gonna be in a really bad situation, and being single forever is better than getting in a relationship and getting divorced and or dying. And that's what Fiona says. She's like, pretty much every relationship ends in either death or divorce, because one spouse kills the other one, not because of old age. And it turns out, since Katie was not giving Peter what he wanted, he shoved her downstairs and she died, because in this universe, and in San Francisco, period, it seems that everybody's answer to everything is murder. I kind of wish that this book had actually taken the ridiculous course and made kind of a dystopian, not a dystopian, but like an exaggerated version of San Francisco where, yeah, everything was terrible and everybody was just casual about murder, but obviously that's not really the case here. Fiona tells her dad to stop setting her up with people like Peter. She doesn't want a broken neck, and look what happened to her cousin. Like, that's her future if he keeps doing this. She also justifies her murder of Don, or else she would have ended up just like Katie. Her dad is like, you know what? You're right. I'll stop trying to set you up because I like you not dead. So the dichotomy here is you either get married and die, or you stay single and single and single. More insane is she is constantly taking part in a murder, and then she's like, look, I will murder other people because everybody's got to die, but I don't want to die, so don't make me get married, because somebody will die if I get married. Fiona is now with Sean and in the car and talking about how his vehicle is basically a prostitution butcher factory, because things are escalating rapidly. He's just like picking up random prostitutes all over San Francisco and then taking them somewhere and then butchering them. And he's even got Fiona in the car picking up a prostitute, leaves Fiona behind to take the prostitute out. And we got this quote, I wasn't so sure that this girl deserved what she was going to get. She just wanted to make a living. It was her body, her life, her choice of profession. In California, if you've got it, you flaunt it, market it, sell it, all to the highest bidder, just like the folks in Hollywood. It's West Coast culture. I suspected that it no longer mattered to Sean whether someone was asking for it or not. He was in it for the thrill now, and I prayed that he was not devolving, throwing caution to the wind, giving in completely to the darkness, because that would lead him straight to San Quentin State Prison. As if this hadn't started out with him giving in to the darkness because he was just murdering random women for being too pretty. Like, Fiona, there is no devolving. I don't know what this author was doing with this, but it never turns into devolving because he was always attacking innocent people. Except for maybe his dad who beat him, and then Daryl from the correctional facility who attacked him first. But like, he's always been a psycho, over-exaggerating, over-responding to everything. And now Fiona is worried about people deserving it when she's like, well, May deserved it for being pretty and asking questions, and Blondie over there at the bar deserved it for being freaking pretty and existing. So this book didn't have to be bad. This book didn't have to be nonsensical, but I don't know what Angela thought that she was doing. After the body is done with, Sean calls and asks Fiona if she's up for sailing again. It happens pretty fast. He dumps the body into the water while she's talking about hating milkshakes and being hungry. There is no point to the scene. Nothing is revealed. We just get another body off into the garbage, and it'd be fine if it was showing like a disassociation as the character was escalating and her not caring about other people, but through the entirety of the book, she has been disassociated and uncaring. Fiona takes them to a place in Chinatown since she's hungry, and they talk about Fiona hanging around after Katie's funeral next, and then who knows what she's gonna do. She doesn't know what her future holds, but she knows that she is not getting married. She convinced her parents of that. Then she goes home drunk, and it doesn't really matter. She's preparing for Katie's funeral, and then they're gonna take a plane, saying that she doesn't talk to Peter at the funeral. And then they go over clothing choices for the funeral and what is appropriate. And her dad is like, remember to wear lipstick because lipstick matters. That's another one of the things that the book constantly talks about. The lipstick. You gotta wear the lipstick. At the funeral, Fiona is admiring how Katie looks. There are a bunch of angry people at the funeral and they just start fighting each other. So Katie kind of steps out of the funeral parlor as they're going at each other, and she admires the bathroom at the funeral home, saying that it's the place anywhere will skimp on if they don't have time to clean properly, because who is going to care if it looks dirty in the bathroom? And she's like, it's pretty much like wearing a nice suit with dirty underwear. Nobody is going to check or care if you're in the bathroom. It's a random aside that is completely useless because that's all that happens before she returns to the main parlor and ends the fight. Then she leaves the bathroom and returns to the funeral parlor to look at where the morticians prepare people until it's time to go to the wake. And we get this quote: Katie's funeral service put everyone in a foul mood. We sat on one side of the room, Peter's family on the other side. My delicate, porous psyche suffered from terrible mounting tension. Not even a delicious pecan pie at the wake could dispel the tidal wave of bad energy. Still, I helped myself to 2 slices and talked to the 2 homicide detectives who attended Katie's funeral. I failed to realize their presence until one approached me, interrupting my second slice of pie. Like, as if we're supposed to care that she's disassociated when she's literally been like this the entire time. We're in the climax of the book. Nothing matters. She doesn't matter. She doesn't care. I don't even know what the rest of this story is going to even try to pretend to do other than being edgy. As the story continues, people are now randomly noticing that prostitutes are going missing, and they're talking about it, and it's so dumb. The book is just, well, people are missing. Somebody is saying that, hey, the streets are finally being cleaned up. Who cares? Quote, rumors began spreading about the serial killer on the loose in the Bay Area, like the Zodiac Killer. The city waited for cryptic notes to be sent to the San Francisco Chronicle or the Examiner. The media waited for mysterious packages to be mailed to NBC, ABC, CBS, even to Fox. The police prepared for taunting phone calls and puzzle boxes, but nothing came. Everyone continued to wait, and the prostitutes continued to disappear off the streets. The police got tired of prostitutes and pimps streaming into the stations reporting missing colleagues, pretending that the missing woman was their friend or a friend of a friend. After all, no pimp was going to walk up to the desk sergeants and say, hey man, my hoe didn't come back up on my corner. Or, hey, I'm missing a hoe. But still, in the end, their visits generated too many reports that needed to be filed, too much paperwork, so they doubled the number of patrol cars in the Tenderloin, bringing number up to 2. It likes to be like nobody cares about prostitutes. Maybe the weather got too cold for them and they went to LA. Those miniskirts sure aren't too warm. It's not even trying. This is the escalation. You don't even see the escalation. It just tells you. And the only reason that the police are not interacting or looking into any of this is what? Because they're prostitutes? Yeah, this is at 90%, by the way. This is the climax. Because of the escalation and all of the pimps going in to talk to the cops, Sean says that he is forced to take a break due to risk of exposure. He is not even in mania or addiction. He's literally just like, and so you would think a lot of serial killers kind of lost it near the end as they just kind of started spinning out of control and got really, really sloppy, as that's usually what happens with an impulse killer. Sean is just like, you know what? I gotta slow down. He went into mania and then he just kind of stopped mania, which tells me that this author has never investigated serial killing. She just barely knows about serial killing existing by virtue of the way that the media idolizes it, but never put any research into the psychology of it to write about it in any accurate way, in any attempt of a semi-accurate way. And then you get left with this, where he's just like, you know what? Time to take a break. Just as soon as he says that, though, it is also when Sean tells Fiona to come to his house because there is work to do. God's work, of course. We find out that Peter never made it to trial because he hung himself in jail to avoid jail time. There's a sort of irony in how everybody in this just dies. There's everyone. It took like 2 days. Sean, I'm pretty sure Peter could have gotten out of that without having to do any jail time with the way that this is set up. But yeah, let's just kill everybody. Sean calls the serial killers who couldn't get themselves off in court losers, and then tells Fiona to leave because he's got work to do. Again, it says something, then immediately defies it because nothing matters in this book. After Fiona leaves, she says that Sean has stopped calling, stopped talking to her, has nothing to do with her anymore. And Sophia's like, you know what? I felt bad when he left me behind and I thought that we were friends, but he wants nothing to do with me. And you know what? We're not friends anymore and I don't freaking care. So yeah, because it's not because he's wrong in what he's doing. It's not because he's a serial killer. She just gets mad that he stops talking to her. And yeah, this immediately prefaces Sean about to be caught. So what happened that is going to cause Sean to get caught is that one of the people that he killed actually got away and then went to a police station and described what he looked like. So there were sketches of him about, and they're not very well done sketches according to Fiona, but she can tell that it's him. And so could Sean's neighbor, an old lady. And the old lady took that flyer that she saw, the wanted poster, and went straight up to Sean's house and was like, I see you. I see that this is you, you guilty son of a bitch. I'm gonna go and turn you into the police. And so Sean killed her. Why would she do that? Oh, other than conveniences, contrivances, that's why. Because this author is just like, nothing. How did this get published? That's going to be the new series of these freaking books. How did this get traditionally published? So Fiona sees the flyers going around and tries to locate Sean by calling his office, which he is apparently never really at anymore, because every time she calls the Hymen doctor, they're like, yeah, he's not here. You would think that somebody would be getting suspicious, but no. When she calls his house / his phone, he does answer and talks to her on the phone and tells her to come over. And she's like, you know what? I should be wary about going to the house of a killer, but the part of me that's in love with him is just worried about him. So now all of a sudden, this is the first time the L word comes up. The first time that she's mentioned being in love with him. And this is where it's at. And it doesn't show in anything else. He tells Fiona that someone found out, and this old woman was named Betty. And so she comes over, and Betty's body is in the bathroom waiting to be dismembered. And Fiona is like, okay, I got to get out of here. Sean is out of control. He shouldn't have killed that old woman. While he could kill the prostitutes of San Fran, people are going to notice an old woman is missing, and it is going to end badly for Sean. So as Sean is going to go into the bathroom, Fiona turns on his gas stove because he lives in one of the few homes that still has a gas oven, and then lights a cigarette and puts it over there and then leaves, which is inevitably going to cause an explosion. And she's like, you know what? It's better for him. Sean had spiraled out of control. I had no idea what he was evolving or devolving. I had no idea whether he was evolving or devolving, but I knew that Betty's disappearance would not be easily dismissed by anyone, let alone the police. She wasn't some whore on a corner. Little old ladies, even nosy, obnoxious ones, garner sympathy from authorities. They present the helpless in our society. They are upstanding citizens who pay taxes and deserve the attention of the police, who are supposed to protect them from predators like Sean. So yeah, he got to kill half of the prostitute population of San Francisco because nobody cares about prostitutes. but one old lady is like too far. We open the final chapter of this book with, quote, 63% of female Chinese mantis diets consist of male Chinese mantids. She devours him after mating if he's too weak to escape from her clutches. So he can't go and mate with other females and pass on his sissy DNA. It's a part of the natural selection process. Good old-fashioned Darwinism, sexual evolution, not to mention the extra nutrition provided. Someone needs to tell Hello Kitty. Most of the people think only black widow spiders eat their mates, but it's not true. Sexual cannibalism is common in many families of spiders, scorpions, and praying mantids. Species that have managed to survive for millions of years, that outlasted the dinosaurs, and that will probably live here once we are gone. On her way to work, Fiona goes by Sean's apartment, where apparently, despite it being an entire apartment building with other condos, the only apartment that exploded was Sean's. There was no other damage. And then, in his honor, she lights a cigarette outside of his complex to consume his ashes because she is a freaking edgelord. Quote, I pulled out a cheap lighter and the Dunhill cigarette that I took from Sean from his coat pocket and lit it. I put the cigarette to my lips and inhaled. The hot, rich smoke burned my throat, making me cough violently. But undaunted, I tried it again. It was better the second time, and the third. Asthma be damned, everyone has to die. I stood there, looking up at the remains of Sean's apartment, smoking Sean's cigarette and recalling the conversation that we had on the Countess that day that we sailed to Angel Island. I thought about what he had said about his ashes and what he wanted. And then I took a deep breath, telling myself that that was what Sean would have wanted. That's what people always tell themselves. And then I took another and another. I was inhaling Sean's ashes, essence, spirit, whatever was left of him in the air around me. It was better than consuming his flesh, his genitals, his body parts. Lower risk of contracting a disease, no risk of someone calling me a freak. Just to be on the safe side, Fiona, you're a freak. You're not safe. Oh, for a lot of reasons. But, so pretty amazing that Sean's apartment was the only one affected by this explosion. Fiona goes to work, sees an article about Sean's death and that it blames cigarettes for the death and how you should stop smoking, which is a common thing between every death in this book, where it was like, just so you know, like with the guy who died in the alleyway, it was like, it was because he was drunk and alcohol is dangerous and you shouldn't do this. It was all like this stupid stuff. Oh, this chick fell off the boat and let's talk about boat safety. And we're probably, that's the other thing. Oh my gosh. It's with the articles where they're like, you know, we're not really sure how they died, but this is probably why they died. So this author also put zero effort into investigating or doing any sort of realistic article, even though she would break the narrative in order to insert an article blurb. It was so dumb. In the final bit of the book at work, Fiona sets her desktop to Sean to say that he is the love of her life. So then whenever anybody asks who that is, that's who she will say he is. She turns on Nirvana, saying that it's a good thing. She turns on Nirvana yet again, letting Smells Like Teen Spirit play, and says the song is brilliant because nobody knows what Kurt Cobain was saying, and so you can make it say whatever you want to make it say. She's edgy, and she can take care of her duties. You could say whatever you want when you were singing that song, and that is going to be her life. You know, she is edgy. She could take care of any of the dudes that her dad sends her way. She can take care of her life. She basically intersperses Smells Like Teen Spirit with her saying that she will take care of people and say goodbye to them because she will let no person control her. It's horrible. This book, Simon & Schuster should be ashamed of publishing. This agent should be ashamed of this book, of repping this book. Like, oh my gosh, maybe that's mean, but like, I had this referred to me. So there is so much that I could get into if I really wanted to undress this book in a developmental way, but I'm gonna keep it to the big notes that I did not say as I was reading the story. Obviously, there are no stakes in this book. Like, nothing Fiona does, no choices Fiona makes actually ever put her in danger. She's never worried about the cops. Sean is never worried about the cops. The whole Hymen thing obviously just dropped off the face of the planet, even though it could have been there as a thing to inspire her wanting to dishonor her family, her anger at her family. She never freed her mom. Maybe that would have been a choice, is to kill her dad to free her mom, since she called her mom a Hello Kitty, but that never happens. She loves her mom. She likes her dad less, but nothing goes there. Fiona has no drive. She literally does nothing. Everything is done for her, around her. Sean is the killing person. Sean is the one that gets her the new job. Sean, she can't even tell anybody no. This book also does the annoying thing where being a girl or being feminine is demonized, is considered the worst, is actually you're targeted and murdered for it. Where if you want to be a wife or a mother, it is considered a nightmare. Again, this tells me that this person has some unresolved issues, or had some. This is published 14 years ago, so hopefully she's in a better place. But it obviously also shows that being as vulgar as possible about sex and being as mean as possible is the desirable thing in this, because that's this character, and this character gets away and is like, hell yeah, I am the best. Obsession with the hymen and virtue and acting like you get punished for sex or marriage is obnoxious. It had no thesis, even though it tried, but it never focused on what it was trying to say, and it kind of lost itself very quickly after meeting Sean. It didn't even stick with her loving freaking serial killers, which you'd think that it would have. You think that she would have been like super into it, because she starts out this whole thing fantasizing and drooling all over Ted Bundy, and then she's like, oh, you know what? this is probably a bad idea. She freaking judging Sean for killing prostitutes when so many of the people that she worshipped killed prostitutes and sorority girls. Something that I'm really tired of seeing, and apparently we're not out of this, it's only gotten worse in the last 15 years, is mean characters for the sake of being mean and cruel. It is not inventive, it is not new, it is not fresh, and to be this, oh, I'm gonna take everything evil that I could possibly think of and put it in a story, and then, like, because good characters and love and happiness are so overrated. No. This isn't cute. Nobody who wants to follow this. Tell me who this book was for. If you read this book, if you've read this book, tell me who it is for. Tell me who wants to like Fiona or be Fiona. Probably the same people that like freaking Southern House. Probably the same people that like Grady Hendrix book club book. Because those are all mean women, except for Slick, who gets abused. Sean was also the weakest serial killer ever. There was also never any threat to him, for him, because the author's fingers were always all over this book. It was always just like, randomly, here's a paragraph saying, oh, he's killed a bunch of people, and everything just happened, and he was entirely in plot armor. Like, talk about weak writing. The other issue with this character, with Fiona specifically, is that because she starts out emotionally detached and angry and stays emotionally detached and angry, her chillness with death doesn't actually mean anything. And you can make that a character trait and make them disassociative, but then if you're doing like a character piece or a commentary on this, then you need to show that what it is that is being examined here. And it feels like somebody read American Psycho and saw Patrick Bateman being sassy and separate from the world without understanding why he was the way he was or what the story was doing. That's what this feels like. Final thing is, Fiona didn't even do any of her own kills. She slyly let all of them happen for her. Even Sean, she just planted a bomb and then walked out. Didn't actually do it, which that's pretty par the course for, female serial killers often, is they use poisons or they use indirect means to do it, especially when it's a man. Again, if you're going to make serial killing or your whole focus being killers, it might be best to actually have some sort of threat. Otherwise, it's just a fantasy of murdering people and then complaining about how your parents want you to get married and you're like 30 and unmarried. The way that death is treated in this book makes it frivolous and meaningless, and maybe that's what it was trying to do, but again, it completely missed the mark if it was trying to do what American Psycho did with murder, which was show the disassociation of Patrick Bateman and the insanity brought on by how shallow the yuppie culture was. There was no reason for Fiona to do the things that she was. She just hated other women and wanted success. And Sean had no rhyme or reason for anything that he did. It was just the most shallow attempt. It felt like a teenager writing about murder with no idea how psychology works, with how targets are picked, with how anything is done. It's just, you have plot armor, you have no drive. It's just, you do what you want to do. And a note for the future, at least this is for my preferences. Loving death isn't edgy. Being chill with death isn't edgy. Being chill with pain isn't edgy. Loving serial killers randomly also isn't edgy. Worshipping serial killers isn't edgy. You can do interesting things and interesting character studies with all of these elements, but just shoving them in one character does not suddenly make your character or your story cool. It feels like weak and attempted shock factor. Also very teenager. Also, the random dropping of serial killers in the story to pretend that you know anything that you're talking about, but it's all just a shallow mention, and some of them clearly not used well, or to even reference their background, like being like, oh, serial killers are removing the scum of society. Oh, I can't believe people actually hated Albert Fish for doing God's work. I mean, she would think that since he was accused of killing a freaking child, and she hates children, but like, Fiona, pick a lane. If you want to celebrate people killing children, then don't pretend that it's, oh, Sean is losing his marbles by killing prostitutes suddenly. Have a reason to believe what you believe. And then I must do the obligatory leave Jeffrey alone. Because a lot of, I hate it so much. When I watch true crime anything and then people bring up Jeffrey Dahmer randomly and they constantly misuse him when they reference him, and it's just like, because he's a popular person to reference, but people don't know the background story. They just know the headlines, okay? And I know I have an unhealthy amount of knowledge from studying and writing papers on Jeff and from having my own thing going on, like working on my own story related, but like obligatory, there are better options that you could choose. I cannot believe Ed Kemper wasn't brought in here. Like, there are just a handful of names that people are like, oh, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer. Then they don't care about the background of any of these people. They just name drop them because they know them from headlines and sensationalism. And you're a fangirl, and it's bad. Stop doing it. I don't know why there were so many poop references in here or why it was so obsessed with coprophilia. That's kind of a choice. And the whole edginess of constantly being like, I'm murdering people, and that's God's work. And also making her go to a Catholic school. Again, if this is if this is semi-autobiographically inspired, then it feels like unresolved issues. Fiona, you need therapy, not a Hymen. And that's all I've got to say about this book. I mean, I could go on. I could freaking go on if I really wanted to. But you know what? I think that's it. I think I'm ready to put this traumatic event behind me and not read this book ever again. It was on my Goodreads with 0 stars because I never rated it because I found it and was like, oh, I read this. But I couldn't remember anything about it. And now, here we are. Welcome to the things that I have seen. You know, with how important I say it is to, like, when you contract a part of somebody else's story into your soul, I should honestly try to put in a better effort of what I put into myself. But this had already stained me. Does that count? I don't know. Maybe I'll recover from this event in 5 years. Anyway, that was Hello Kitty Must Die by Angela Choi. Have you read this book? Will you read this book? Had you ever heard of this book before? I'm looking forward to your thoughts in the comments down below, especially if you've read this book. Sometimes I feel like I fall into the twilight zone of finding books like this, The Confederacy of Hot Dog, The Kosher Anarchist Cookbook, XXX Seamus, Academy Gothica, or whatever it was. I'd have to go look at my blog from where I posted the book review on that back when I read that book, because some things I'm just like, how has nobody heard of this stuff? I need to share it. And that's why we're here. With that said, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for struggling through this book with me. I hope you got a giggle. Watch out for the Fionas. Have a good weekend, and don't die.
The only people who should come are those who want to meet their monsters.
If this is what Agatha wants, I don't know how we can even dispute it.
I change lives, baby.
And I and them. Sweetheart, no bargains hold. Only fools know restraint.
Only losers lose!
I've been under the knife so many times, I'm practically immune to it.
If your scissors are dull, may I recommend sharpening them with leather?
I think I hit you.
Mima says I must have a guardian angel.
To enter the ring but abstain from playing is suicidal. Your virtue makes you nothing but a liability.
You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die.